Welcome everyone. So this presentation today is Serverless to Observerless. Over the next 20 odd minutes, it's going to be a live code demonstration. And so, and it's going to be what's possible for serverless on AWS. So we're going to literally start with nothing. Going to build an application of beauty, and then we're going to burn it down to the ground. And unlike every other serverless talk that I've been to, I'm not going to start with the definition of serverless and what is or isn't in there. If you want to hear my opinion on it, come find me afterwards at coffee. I'll be floating around. And for those of you who may not know me, I am Pipeline Pete. I'm a principal consultant at Mech Rock. All right. So, can someone at the back give me a thumbs up or thumbs down if you can see that? I can zoom it in, down, cool. Better? Yep, I'm going to take that as a yes. All right. So, cool. So this phase of the demo typically takes about 5 minutes. I'm just going to kick it off. This code is on GitHub, and I'll bring up a link to that later on if you want to go and have a look at it yourself. And a fun fact about this presentation, I have yet to run it successfully from start to finish. Every single time in the past, something has gone wrong. And typically it takes 45 minutes, and I've got 18 minutes and 5 seconds now, so pressure is on. All right. So you're probably wondering what's this behind me. We all know that everything is supposed to be as code, you know, infrastructure is code, our applications, etc. What we're doing here is we are I'm kicking off the pipeline to build everything as code. So this will deploy my source control, my CI/CD pipeline, all the build processes, etc. And the way we kick this off from the very, very start, we have a simple shell script. So it's pretty dull. CLI call kicks off, create stack, wait for it to complete. It's kind of complete over there. Great. Get the repository back, and then we add some files in and go from there. I should have also said at the start, this is actually a breadth first presentation rather than depth, so I'm not really going to deep dive into any of the particular services. If you are interested, again, find me afterwards at coffee. So, what did we just run? We ran this file. Now, this is how you do everything as code. And I'm not going to sit here, or stand here, I should say, going through this line by line, because it's going to be pretty boring. But there are a couple of interesting pieces. First off, source control. That's part of the pipeline as well. So how we manage this is part of infrastructure as code. And we scroll down to our pipeline and get our source down here. So our pipeline is listing for changes in our source code repository, in this case on master branch. And the next interesting thing is this bit down here. So this is code pipeline. It's kind of the build orchestration, or the CI/CD orchestration service from AWS. And this is actually looking at the file that we're looking at here. So what this means is that if I make a change into this file, go through my PR process if I have one, commit, push that up, this pipeline is going to wake up here, execute this, the CloudFormation script, execute those sets of changes, and this little sweet little flag up here, pretty innocuous. When that's set to true, it'll actually get to that point, this administrator pipeline, and go back to the very start and run back through again. So as you add more things to this, it'll go, yep, I've made a change, go back to the start, and then run back through again. Now, the application itself, it's a pretty basic implementation of rock, paper, scissors. Pretty simple. Or rock, paper, butterfly, which I'll come to that in a minute. Keep you guys on your toes. It's a serverless framework application. It uses a serverless framework to do all the undifferentiated heavy lifting. So again, in here, it's pretty boring if I step through this entirety, but I'll just show the interesting bits. Going top down for our IAM roles. So we can see here, we're fine-tuning these, you know, principle of least privilege. We can put an item in DynamoDB, put an object into S3, lock it down to those particular resources. So if somehow this Lambda was compromised, you know, there's some kind of, one of the libraries has a vulnerability, it's pretty locked down, right? And X-Ray, which we'll come to towards the end of this presentation. Scroll down. functions. So this approximately 10, 12 lines of code doesn't look much, but from this, we're going to deploy about a dozen services or resources onto AWS. So we have a function here. This is going to be the Lambda itself, the Lambda version, IAM roles, the serverless framework, resources that provision this and run this, and what have I missed? API gateway. So an API gateway, if you've ever looked at CloudFormation, it's like a dozen services, definitions. Cool. And the last little bit in here is the build spec. So this is the pipeline is actually going to run, code pipeline, run code build, and actually build, test, and deploy the game. So again, it's not go through it pretty quickly. Bring up local stack. So we're actually, as part of the build process, it's going to run unit tests against a simulated but kind of like-for-like environment of local stack. Install some dependencies, run a unit test, check code coverage, deploy the serverless application, and deploy some static resources for us. So from here, we'll go and switch into GUI mode from text mode. Let's see how my... that's interesting. So let's look at code pipeline. Yep, absolutely. Unfortunately, it's not terribly good. Up the back there, you guys see? About half. I'll go one more for you. There we go. So this is actually pretty boring, right? Some nice green colors here. Got our application that's deploying. Got probably about another 2 minutes for this to run. So reinforcing what we're looking at the AWS seed YAML file, our source definition, looking at our code commit repo. You see 3 minutes ago, the changes went in, pipeline. Unfortunately, I don't have time in this presentation to demonstrate this, but if that deploy stage down the bottom here wasn't there, we could put that back in and you kind of see that process of where it kind of gets down to administer pipeline and then roll back around. So while waiting for that, let's go and see what it's up to. Tick tock, tick tock. All right, we'll let that run for a second. So this is where I come to my filler card while we wait for this to complete and catch up for me. So I guess, I kind of came across this kind of way of doing things, kind of my first project with Mech Rock, where we're kind of doing pipelines and everything else, and just that kind of pushing the boundaries all the time, trying to think about, how can we do things better, do faster, infrastructure as code, all that kind of thing. And I just actually happened to stumble across that flag in code pipeline. I was like, oh, I wonder what this does. Went down that path and kind of born this. From this, actually spawned a series of, about 7 now, I think, blog posts around what we end up calling an Inception Pipeline. These are the things you can do with a pipeline that self-manages itself. Things like you have an AWS account and you use a pipeline like this to manage the things you do in your account. So like IAM roles, probably a classic example there. Use these pipelines to deploy things across accounts as well. And because they're all kind of self-managing, it kind of works. Ooh, looks like we're complete. So stop ad-libbing everything and we'll jump to the more exciting part. So, quickly show you pipeline, give it a bit of a refresh. Tick, tick, tick. Yeah, it's done. Just trust me. So, cool. So, we have some buckets. So, if you're paying careful attention to the serverless YAML file, you may have noticed there was a reference to S3 bucket. That's this one here. Dive into here. This is the application itself. So this S3 bucket's going to host the game for me. In a real life situation, in production, we'd use something like CloudFront. But if you've ever used CloudFront, that takes about 45 minutes just to deploy. And so waiting for the next 2 talks before I'd be able to come back to this. So just using S3 today. We've got that index file. And from here, we can click on this. And we slowly have the game, rock, paper, scissors, or butterfly. So did a dry run of this for today. And what's supposed to be scissors, everyone kept calling butterfly. So Personally, I think it's beautiful, like scissors, but apparently not. And so, I do want to point out, you can see I actually have absolutely no artistic skill whatsoever. This was about 30 seconds at home about 2 weeks ago, just scribbling something down, scanning it on the scanner, and then chuck it in. So, let's play a game. Chuck my name in there, and I can't really see everybody. I think Rock looks pretty happy, so let's click on him. And drum roll. Hey, Lambda. Every time I run this, Lambda always seems to pick paper for the very, very first one. It's actually not in the code, but it just always seems to do that, so I should probably learn mistakes. Try paper this time. Pick scissors this time. So, can you guys see that, actually? The back, again, kind of, yeah, cool. All right. So that's Lambda 2-0, right? Let's try scissors. 3-0, okay, I give up. All right, let's go back. So, no! Don't think I've got enough time, actually. All right, let's cover this. So, just quickly show you. So this is actually API Gateway under the hood, right? So you can see we've got our API Gateway, dev stage, because every API Gateway needs to have a stage, our Lambda function, remember that from before, name, and our choice. So actually, I see. So what usually happens, right? People do demonstrations like this, they get to this point and they just stop. And to me, that's kind of boring, right? Like, yep, take this nice, safe, happy path. That's boring. So, like I said, let's try and build this to the ground. So we'll jump back to here. So this normally takes about 2 to 3 minutes to kick in as well. What we're doing here is basically simulating this going viral. You know, like the selfie to anime before. So, sorry, I apologize, I lost my train of thought. So, doing this. So when things go viral, like in our heritage architectures and things that we've worked on in the past, it's all very, very heavily log-centric. And so, you know, if you're lucky, you get people come into you, like your colleagues or customers, you know, screaming at you, hey, something's wrong. And from there, you've got to go and find the logs, like maybe log into the machine or copy log files down, open them up. If you're lucky, you've got like a timestamp or an approximate time. If you're lucky, there's like an stack trace, an exception, something like that. But typically, you kind of got to poke around, and kind of waste, you know, hours at times. And a little bit CloudWatch. It's kind of the same thing, right? So here, you know, simulate this. We go into logs, so a whole bunch of directories. You know, I think this is the right one here. A bunch of log streams, go into here. And there's some errors in here. You're hardly going to, not likely to find it, right? You're going to have to poke around for ages and actually it's not even the right one. Huh. Where are we? That's the right one, see? Demonstration there, right? Like looking for the wrong place. So, you know, all those entries before and in here, if there's an error in here, you're not really going to find it, are you? You know, I remember one of my first jobs, sort of early 2000s, you know, it was DevOps before DevOps, really, before we had that nice label. You know, I had a dual screen setup, which is pretty rare for the time. One of my screens was running secure CRT. It logged into the production server and was actually tailing log files for me. And the hope was that I'd have a dedicated log file with errors in there. If something was to go wrong, then I could actually have that there. It would flash up for me. I can kind of find it and respond to it. And we were a little bit lucky there as well that you know, we kind of worked sort of Eastern Coast, sort of 9 to 5 times. You know, a couple of bit here in the afternoon for WA, but it was quite simple to watch it. You know. And this is the part that always takes the longest. All right. Actually, I'll keep letting that run for a bit and see if it'll catch up. So what's supposed to happen by this point is that the Lambda function started to fail. We're starting to get errors on this output here. And this is where we're lucky to have AWS X-Ray instrumenting the Lambda function. And so what this does for me, allows me to do, is wrap the AWS SDK and add segments and sub-segments, which kind of track the trace through my Lambda function. And so I can kind of see where things may be failing, how long certain parts of it are taking, and the likes. So in here, we're starting the game up, play the turn, we're generating some results, we're sticking those into S3, and then we're storing those results in DynamoDB. And still haven't seen everything. Awesome. All right. I'm going to jump across to X-Ray. So I'm going to need you guys to pretend now that something's actually gone wrong, which I guess it kind of has, right? Like I said, everything goes wrong at some point, so. Yeah. Good. Is that good? All right. So this is the X-Ray console. And so when this demo works correctly, what you start to see is that API gateway here is starting to get some faults in here. Then you've got the Lambda service itself, starts to have some errors. This has some errors. And then you kind of see that the Dynamo bucket is all green, still unhappy. The DynamoDB table is starting to get throttling throughput errors. And from there, we would kind of click into it and see down here some throttling errors and go from there. That was kind of to simulate, when your game goes viral, things go wrong. So just one last chance, and we'll kill it. So, there we go. We had 6 failed transactions in 3,500 odd requests. We had 6 things fail. If you had to go and try and track that down, it'd be pretty hard to see. And we'll give this one last refresh in here. And see if we can find the throttles. No, of course not. All right. So what I want you guys to take away from today is how easy it is to start with infrastructure as code. CloudFormation is there and has pretty good support. It's not perfect, but it's pretty damn good. It's really quick to get these things up and running. You start building some basic foundation, like some foundational tools and building blocks, and you can start doing stuff really, really quickly on AWS. And they've got these really cool services as well, right? You've got your build, you've got your operate and run, and you've got your monitoring, those tools as well. Do want to finish up. Unfortunately, we couldn't see it today, but this actually helped us on a client site about 18 months ago. We'd recently rolled out AppSync, and AppSync was returning a 429 error, which was really, really bizarre. We couldn't figure it out. This was holding up production deployment of a new feature. And one of the guys instrumented the Lambda function with X-Ray, and it turned out it was exactly this situation where DynamoDB, before we had paper request, was throttled down quite small, and we're actually just hitting that Lambda through the Lambda to DynamoDB, and it was throttling for us. Resolved that issue, and then the error went away, deployed out to production, and everyone was happy. That's basically it for my presentation. I know it's coffee time now, so I think if you want to ask me any questions, come find me outside for coffee. But that's it. Thank you.